He's trying to reboot. I was able to change the title and stuff. I just forgot on the appointment, but Whitney had Insurance 101 down on her planning list. So I'm like, yeah, that's not what this is about.
That's fine. Yeah, I saw it. Actually, I know some UNO graduates who got the email and called me, and they're like, "Hey." So this is just any alumni of any age, just graduated, or?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Perfect. Are y'all doing classes, or is it everything online next semester?
Well, students are coming back. They're going to start online and then, make a reevaluation after the Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, gotcha.
So
See what happens.
I think they're going to go with like a hybrid kind of model or whatever, but
right.
Looks like we have 41 people registered, so that's good.
All right. Can I get a list of their emails after to follow up, or is that not something you'll do?
We don't typically give out our people's information. What I usually do is send a follow-up, like with your information.
Perfect.
And, if you want to provide the slides or, whatever you want to provide, if there's like worksheets or,
Sure. Okay.
That stuff, I can send that out.
I'm just going to leave my email and phone number on the screen.
Okay.
Can you see this? Is this sharing?
Yes.
Perfect. Don't worry, my wife's taking the baby for a walk once this gets started.
Oh, that's fine. I just love those little tiny voices.
I know. Do you have any kids? Do you have any kids?
No, I have 2 kitties. But I love my a good friend of mine's daughter comes over and she just has this super high pitched voice and she's always like, "I got a kitty."
Yeah, they're pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. That comes and it seems like the Wi-Fi is out. Okay. So you've been working from home, I assume.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I don't think I ever want to go back to the office.
I'm actually in the office today. We've been going back like 1 day a week.
Really?
But I can get so much more done here. I mean, not, I don't have any distractions at home, but it depends on what I'm working on. Like I do some design stuff. So if I'm doing design, like I want both my screens and I want, I don't want to just use my little laptop, but yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it can be easier to get stuff done at the office. That's certainly true.
I got used to it. I didn't think I'd make it. Like at the beginning, because I love people, I, like talking to people, whatever. I like having people around.
Right.
And so I was like devastated the first couple of weeks, but then got really used to it.
Yep. You get used to anything, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Did you go to UNO, Antoine?
I I took a few classes at UNO years ago, and my wife graduated from there about
Oh,
2 years
great.
ago. So I know the campus well.
Gotcha. Where did you go?
I went to Rice in Houston for college, actually.
Oh, cool. Good
Yeah.
school.
I grew up here, but I went to Jesuit here, and then I went to Rice for college, and then I
Uh,
came right back to New Orleans.
uh-huh.
I figure we'll wait a couple minutes after 12 to get
Yeah.
started, and then
At noon, what I'll do is go ahead. Oh, wait. Oh. Sorry, guys. Somehow I must have pushed the recording button. So we do have a couple people in already, but we'll give it, 2 or 3 minutes after noon for people to come in. If I had known I was going to be on camera today, I would have put makeup on, but it's been so long since I have. I probably forgot how.
Yeah, I know how it goes. When you don't leave the house for several days.
Yes, I know. Just having to put on something other than pajamas.
I know. Oh.
everyone. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes to make sure everyone can get in. Antoine, how do you pronounce your last name?
Pado.
Gotcha.
Antoine Pado.
Give it about 1 more minute and we'll get going. Okay, well, we can go ahead and get started. And we are recording this, so if people miss the beginning, we can certainly, they can catch up on the video. Hi, everyone. My name is Francie Davenport. I'm the Assistant Director for Alumni Engagement at UNO. Welcome to our weekly webinar series. Today, we're going to be talking about tax-efficient retirement planning, understanding how taxes affect your retirement savings now and in the future. And we have with us, our guest today is Antoine Pado. He is a registered representative with New York Life Investments in New Orleans, specializing in generational wealth management and tax diversification strategies. He is an economist and an educator. So we are very excited to welcome him. Just a couple of things. We can accept any questions through the chat function if you'd like to pull that up. I think Antoine has a presentation, and then we'll sort of ask the questions later, but feel free to put them in the chat anytime and we can sort of go through them all at the end. Anyway, so I will turn it over to Antoine, and everyone enjoy and hope you learn lots. Hope I learn lots. Just turn.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming, everybody, UNO alumni. My name is Antoine Pado. I specialize in retirement planning and tax diversification, as you've heard. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to just do a kind of overview about what retirement planning is, and then we're going to do a little history lesson, and then we're going to talk a little bit about taxes. So it's going to be an exciting session. So, and this should be useful for anybody of any age, whether you just graduated and you're just starting your first career, and you think you might have a 401k, but you're not sure what that is, or maybe you're halfway through your career and you want to see if you're on track, your retirement's on track, or if you're just about to retire and you want to make sure you make the transition correctly. This should be useful for anybody in any of their circumstances. So let's get started. So a lot of people, they're asked the question, what does retirement mean to you? And a lot of people, people say things like, oh, I'll get to spend more time with my grandkids. I'll get to, travel the world. I'll be able to spend more time on my hobbies. And these are all good answers. But ultimately, when you really get down to it, retirement means your paycheck stops. Okay? That's the most important thing about retirement. You are not getting that paycheck that you've gotten every week or every 2 weeks, probably for most of your life. Okay? So your paycheck stops, but what doesn't stop? Your bills don't stop, and your taxes don't stop, right? So got to pay your taxes. All right, so we're going to talk about all of these things, but just remember, your paycheck stops. That's the main thing to take away from this. So when your paycheck stops, what are you going to do? You have to replace that paycheck. You need to create sources of income that are going to replace your paycheck once that paycheck stops coming in. So what sorts of sources of income are we talking about? So there are several ways that you can create streams of income in retirement, and the one everyone knows about is Social Security. Now, Social Security, most of us our retirement age is at 67. If you were born in the early 40s, it might be a little lower. As life expectancies have increased, they've increased the retirement age. But for most of us, it's going to be 67. Now, you can start taking retirement at 62 early, and you can put off taking it until you're 70 years old. Now, the earlier you start before your retirement age, your benefits are going to get docked a little bit because you're starting early. You get full benefits at retirement age. And if you delay it and wait till 70 before you turn on your Social Security benefits, you'll actually get some extra benefits. Now, the rule of thumb is generally if you can afford to wait, if you have other sources of income, then you can put off turning on your Social Security. It's always better to wait as long as you can. If you can make it to 70 without turning on your Social Security, assuming you're fairly healthy and you think you're going to live through your 70s till you're about 80 or so, it's generally best to put it off as long as you can. Of course, if you need the income, turn it on when you have to. Real quick, everyone should do this right after this. If you go to www.ssa.gov, forgive my handwriting, that's a Social Security Administration site. You can go on and you can create an account and you can log in, and it will show you the wages you reported every year of your working life, going back decades and decades if you were working back then. It'll tell you what your retirement benefits are going to look like. You can choose if you can say, well, what'll it be at 62? It'll tell you. What if I wait to 70? What am I going to get? If you're only 40 years old, you can say, if I keep working till 65 and I'm making this much, what will my retirement benefits be? All these calculators, just so you can get an idea of where you're at. Now, the important thing is, if you haven't done this, if you haven't made your SSA account, do it as soon as we're finished. This is really important, because if you don't do it, some identity theft scammer could get some of your information, go on the site, make the account for you, and then now you're locked out. And the process for getting the accounts undone is an absolute nightmare. So you do not want to let this happen. So be proactive, go to the site, ssa.gov, and just make your account and log in one time, just so nobody else can do it. So Social Security, everyone knows about. The next thing some people have is a pension. Now, most people don't have a pension anymore. Our parents and grandparents were much more likely to have pensions. Now, the way a pension worked, you work at your job for 20 or 30 years. Every paycheck, they take a little bit out of your paycheck and put it into your pension. So it would grow and grow. When you retire from the job, they turn on your pension. Your paycheck stops, but now your pension check starts. So, every month you get a check for the rest of your life. It's a lifetime income type thing. So pensions were really great 20, 30, 40 years ago. Nowadays, only a few people have pensions. Sometimes teachers have pensions, government employees have pensions, but I think in the private sector, it's only about 7 or 8% of big companies offer pensions anymore. And we'll get into why that is in the future. Next, we have your retirement accounts. These are things like 401k. If you're a teacher, you might have a 403b. Government employees get a 457 plan. You might have a personal IRA. You might have a Roth IRA. These are all special retirement accounts that have specific tax treatments by the IRS. And again, we'll get more into the taxable stuff a little later on. But these are the typical things that if you work for a company, you might have a 401k. If you don't, you can open up a personal IRA or a Roth. You put money into these accounts, they grow over time, and then hopefully when you retire, you have a bunch of assets in them, you can start drawing those down to live into through retirement. Now, real quick, Social Security and pension, these are basically annuities. And an annuity is simply a lifetime stream of income that pays you every period until you pass away. Retirement accounts don't necessarily create a stream of income. It's just a big basket of assets that hopefully grow and grow. And then once you retire, you have those assets available to access. Another often overlooked piece of retirement income can be cash value life insurance. Now, this is permanent life insurance, not temporary term life insurance. Cash value life insurance, as you pay those premiums every month throughout your life for years and years, that money collects and it grows with interest and dividends typically. And that becomes a big pool of money that in your retirement, you have the option of actually tapping into. It's called living benefits. So not everyone realizes you don't necessarily have to wait till you die to tap into your life insurance policies. So that's another important source of diverse income that you can set up. And then finally, we have investment income. So these are things like, stock dividends, bond interest, maybe real estate rental income. If you own a bunch of real estate, the rental income can help you through retirement. So that's another source. That's sort of a do-it-yourself type thing. Throughout your life, you want to be accumulating assets to offset, to provide you income once you do retire. So these are the basic sources that there can be others, but these are the typical sources of income that you can be looking at once you do retire. So once you do retire, there are going to be a few obstacles to your retirement, things that are going to trip you up, things that are going to, drain your savings. So you need to be aware of all these things so you know how to deal with them. So the first one is inflation. And we all have to deal with inflation. Inflation is the reason your great grandma could buy a dozen eggs for 15 cents. And now a dozen eggs costs $4 or $5. Everything goes up. Stamps are more expensive. Electricity is more expensive. Inflation makes the prices of everything go up. So what will happen is you might retire at 65 or so, and you got, maybe you got a pension, you're taking Social Security, you're pulling out of your retirement account. You've got a certain income right now, and it's sufficient for you. Well, 15, 20 years in the future, if you haven't passed away yet, you're still retired. If inflation's gone up 50 or 100%, you're still making the same amount of money, but everything you have to buy costs so much more. So effectively, your purchasing power is going down. If inflation goes up 100% and you're making the same amount of money, you're basically making half as much money in purchasing power, right? So the income you have when you begin your retirement may not be sufficient, near the end of your retirement. So inflation is always going to be with you, and it's always going to be something that you need to take care of. Next, of course, is taxes, which we're going to go into a bit in the next section. When you retire, you still got to keep paying taxes. Taxes don't go away. Now, there are, of course, ways to arrange your affairs so you don't have to pay quite as many taxes. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. Pardon my one-year-old is having a bit of fun in the other room. Next is market volatility. Now, what this means is that typically things like a 401k or an IRA account are going to be tied up in the market, in stocks and bonds. And if you need to sell some of those assets to provide you some money in retirement, the state of the market when you take money out is going to affect your returns going forward. So for instance, if you retire and the first year you retire, there's a big market crash, and now your 401k is worth a lot less than it was, but you got to sell some of it because you need income. So you sell a little bit of the assets in your 401k. When the market ends up going back up, you're not going to be able to recapture as many of the gains, right? Because you had to sell some of your assets at a low. So that can affect the value of your retirement assets significantly. If you have to take money out during a down year, you can seriously affect your long-term returns. So in addition to, like we're going to talk about tax diversification later, you should also have your assets in diverse places so that you're not so vulnerable to market volatility. Another thing that a lot of people just don't plan for, but is very important, is long-term care costs. Long-term care is the care you need basically at the end of your life, when you can't really take care of yourself anymore, and you need, sometimes round the clock care, whether that's in your own home or in a nursing home. And that can be extremely expensive. And a lot of people don't realize that Medicare typically does not cover most of the expenses associated with long-term care. Now, hopefully you won't be in this state for too long, but there are certain conditions, dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, where people can be completely unable to care for themselves, need around-the-clock care, but they can live in that state for years and years. And that can really, really devastate, the finances of an entire family if that happens to somebody. And then kind of along the same lines as the long-term care is the legacy. Do you want to, most people, they want to leave something for their kids, for their family when they pass away. At the same time, you don't know when you're going to pass away, right? None of us knows when we're going to pass away. So, the tension, the balancing act is, well, you don't want to run out of money before you retire, before you die, right? Of course. So you want to be careful. At the same time, you don't want to be saving all your money and not spending it, and then you pass away early and you never get to enjoy yourself, right? You want to be able to, have fun in your retirement, not just worry about running out of money. And again, if you want to leave a legacy, some people want to die penniless. I've heard people say they want the last check they write to bounce, which is fine for you. But if that happens, you're not going to leave very much as a legacy for your heirs, for your kids and the rest of your family. So, appropriate retirement planning can basically take care of all of these obstacles. Make sure you don't run out of money. Actually make sure that when you do pass away, maybe there's even a little bit extra that you can pass on to your heirs and leave a legacy for them. So those are the obstacles people might see in retirement. And then real quick, we're going to do a quick history lesson just to understand how we got to where we are now, and why retirement isn't the way it used to be for most people, and why it takes a lot more planning to get through it. So basically, defined benefits versus defined contribution. Now, you may have heard these terms tossed around, and I'll tell you what they mean. So back in the past, our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents might have had something called a defined benefits plan. A defined benefits plan is a pension. Okay, if you ever heard the word defined benefit plan, that's a pension. What it means is your company would put some money aside, put part of your paycheck aside into your pension account, and then they have a bunch of actuaries. They're investing the money. They know exactly what your life expectancy is, and so when you retire, they look at how much is in your pension, and they define that you're going to get this amount of money every month or every year for the rest of your life. That's the benefit. The benefit is defined. They tell you they define how much money you're going to get. Well, over the years, and for various reasons, pensions became very expensive to maintain for the companies. People started living longer for a variety of reasons. Interest rates started going down. We'll go into all of that. And sometime in the 80s, most of the country moved to what's called a defined contribution plan. Now, the typical defined contribution plan is the 401k. So the difference now is the benefits are no longer defined. What's defined is the contribution. So every month you put in some of your paycheck into your 401k. Your work might match 3 to 5% of your salary. They'll put that into. It grows tax-free. And then when you retire, hopefully that account has grown, and now you have all these assets to access during your retirement. However, your company has put all the risk of your retirement onto you. Once they put that money into your 401k, it's not their problem anymore. You're the one, you decide what kind of investments you want to invest in, what kind of mutual funds, what you want to put into your 401k, within the plan limits. If you if you put all your 401k into a bunch of junk companies that go bankrupt, and then you're 70 years old and you're getting ready to retire and your 401k is empty, well, that's not your company's problem. That's your problem. They didn't define what your benefits would be in retirement. They just defined the contributions. The benefits are up to you and your investments. So the point is, people don't have the assurance of knowing exactly what their income from their retirement plan from work is going to look like when they retire. And this is, this caused a lot of uncertainty. And this is one of the main reasons that retirement planning has become much more important, because you can't just, count on your pension to be there forever and ever. You actually have to sort of monitor your investments and sort of know what you're doing. And the risk is all on you rather than the risk being on your employer. Another big issue that has happened over the decades is that interest rates have come down and down and down. And what that means is, it used to be, in the 70s, you could buy, once you retire, you could buy CDs at a bank, or you could buy bonds, and they were paying, 8 or 10% interest. And so, that would be a nice little stream of income that you could use to supplement your retirement. Well, as interest rates have come down and down and down over the decades for a variety of reasons, now it's, you're lucky if you go to a bank and buy a CD, you're lucky if you get, 2%. And so you can't really count on that much, interest income. 2% is probably not even going to keep up with inflation, so you actually might be losing purchasing power going into these low interest instruments. And this has also been one of the factors that caused everyone to move away from the pensions, because pensions were typically dependent on higher interest rates to generate the returns needed to pay the guaranteed income that these pension plans guaranteed to the employees. Well, as interest rates went down and down and down, it became unrealistic to expect the pensions to be able to provide the returns. So that's why a lot of companies ended up moving to the 401k model, where the money goes into the market. It has more potential for higher returns, but of course, as we all know, there's much more volatility and much more risk in the stock market. And finally, longevity. Now, most of us don't think that living a long time is a problem, but financially, it absolutely can be. Obviously, the longer you live, the longer you are going to have to be in retirement, and the more assets you're going to have to build. And so I'll draw a little picture here. So in the past, it used to be, this was your life in the past. You'd start working at 20, you start your career at 20 maybe, right? You'd retire at, say, 65, and then you drop dead at 75. That was your life expectancy decades and decades ago. So look, you got 20 to 65, you got 40 years to put money into your pension or into your retirement, save money. You retire at 65, you got 10 years to have an absolute blast. And then you don't have to worry about anything anymore, right? So this model worked pretty well in the past. Well, nowadays, this is kind of what people's professional lives look like. You might not start work until you're, 30. Some people, go to college, maybe go to grad school, move in with your parents for a little while. Or maybe you worked, maybe you worked a bunch of jobs in your 20s, but none of them were, real careers. None of them had a 401k. So a lot of people simply don't start saving until they're 30. Now, let's say you still want to, maybe you'll retire at 65. But now, man, you might live to 90 years old. So in this case, look, we're saving money for 10 years, 10 fewer years, and then we might be living for 20, 30, 35 years, right? So you can understand why this change right here in life expectancy is really what's driving all the other changes. See, as people live longer, you know, the pensions weren't able to keep up, weren't able to pay people for that much longer. Low interest rates could be, in a sense, blamed on longevity. So essentially, all the issues that have changed about in retirement over the last few decades are essentially due to the fact that we live longer, and that means we're going to be in retirement longer. Okay, so we've kind of gone over the overview of what retirement looks like, what you need to plan for. So let's go and talk now about taxes and tax diversification. Oh, I got a little, well, you can read that. Tax diversification, okay? Oops, oh, I'm drawing all over the place. Okay. All right, tax diversification. So if you don't know what a 1099 is, a 1099 is an IRS form. It's the equivalent of a W-2 form for your investments. So the W-2, you always get a W-2, that's for your wages. You have to pay income tax on your wages. The 1099 is basically the W-2 for your investments, right? So every year when you get a 1099, you got to pay income tax on, you know, whatever generated those returns over the year. So the kinds of things that generate the kind of things that generate a 1099 every year are things we talked about, your investment accounts, regular investments. So let's say stock dividends, bond interest. These generate a 1099 every year. So that means that you have to pay income tax every year on your investment income. 1099 later, these are things like your 401k, IRA, maybe a simple plan is a type of small company. 401k, annuities. So when I say 1099 later, so what this means is the investments inside your retirement accounts, like inside your 401k, you do not pay income tax on the income and the returns each year inside your 401k. So those returns can keep just adding up and compounding faster. With the 1099 accounts that we were talking about before, when you get the 1099 every year, you're going to take a little tax haircut. Well, it may not be little. You're going to take a tax haircut on your gains every year. And so that's going to slow down your compounding, right? You make a certain amount and then the taxes take a little bit. So you don't have as much to compound for the next year. With the 1099 later accounts, the 401k and such, that you don't take that tax hit every year. So your returns can compound faster, and every year you're compounding more. Now, the problem is, since you never pay, since you aren't paying taxes as you go, when you finally retire and you start pulling money out of these accounts, that's when you get the 1099, when you start distributing that money to yourself. And you're gonna have to pay income tax on every cent that you take out of these accounts. You know, you gotta pay the piper eventually. The last place that you can have your money at is in what I call a 1099 never account. Now this is account you don't pay, you don't get a 1099 each year, and you don't get even when you start pulling the money out, you don't get a 1099 then either. So this is basically tax-free money. You know, if you do it right, you'll never have to pay taxes on this money again. And then these are things called like a Roth account, a Roth IRA, if you've heard of that. Municipal bonds. These are bonds of your local state and city government. So, you know, you can lend money to your local city or your state by buying their bonds, and the interest on those bonds typically is income tax free. The federal government to influence, to, you know, incentivize people to lend money to their local government, they do not typically make you pay income tax on that income. So that's another way of creating tax-free income. And then the third way, which I mentioned briefly before, is cash value life insurance. And this works similar to a Roth, whereas the money you put in grows tax-free, and then when you access the money through policy loans in retirement, you do not have to pay income tax at that point either. So that's the general idea. So you can think of these as 3 buckets where you can put your money, put your assets that will be taxed differently. And ideally, you want to spread out your assets into these different buckets so that when you do have to start pulling money out of them, you are not paying, you know, the full income tax on everything you pull out. And so that's what we will go into next. So we talked about all these different kinds of sources of income in retirement up here. We're going to talk specifically about retirement accounts this section. Sorry, get back here. All right, so retirement accounts. Okay, so retirement accounts are taxed in the money that goes in and the money that comes out are taxed in different specific ways. And this is the real tax diversification section. Okay, so like I said, we're talking primarily about 401ks, simple plans, 403b, 457. And if you're wondering what these weird numbers and letters mean or where they come from, these come from the IRS tax code. You know, section 401 subsection K defines a qualified employment retirement plan, right? Section 457 defines this kind of retirement plan. That's where all these numbers come from. They come from the tax code. And so all of these types of retirement accounts, well, there are three different tax treatments for retirement, different kinds of retirement accounts. And so the money you put in can either be tax deductible or not tax deductible. So tax deductible means you don't pay income tax on the money before you put it into the account. They call it pre-tax money and post-tax money, right? So this is one type of, so these retirement accounts are treated in a certain way. And then things like the Roth are treated in a different way. So a 401k, simple 403b, all of this stuff is tax-free contribution, tax deductible contributions, and they offer tax-free growth. Okay, so that means, like I said before, if you make $100,000 a year and you put 5,000 of that into your 401k or into your IRA, you're only going to pay income taxes on 95,000, right? You deduct that 5,000 that went into the retirement account. It's tax-free growth, right? So it's for 1099 later. So you're not paying taxes on the growth every year. However, at the end of the day, when you retire, every penny you pull out of these accounts, you're going to get a tax, you're going to get a 1099, and you're going to have to pay income tax on the amount of money you pull out, okay? Something like, so a Roth account is the opposite. A Roth account, and also cash value life insurance, the way these work is they call it post-tax money, right? So you make your money at work, you pay your income taxes on it, and then the money you put into a Roth or your life insurance it's not deductible. It grows tax-free, 1099 later. Well, in this case, there's no 1099 because so there's no 1099 each year as the money grows. And then when you retire and start pulling the money out, there's tax-free distributions, right? So you paid your money. So this is post-tax money. You paid your money before you put it into the Roth, goes tax-free, comes out tax-free. So you never have to pay money on it again. Same with the life insurance policy, works similar to a Roth. Now, you can see you can get 2 out of these 3 features. You can't get all 3, right? You can't get tax deductible contributions, tax-free growth, and tax-free distributions, right? If you did that, that would be tax evasion. Okay, and the one piece of tax advice that I can give you is don't evade your taxes. You'll get in a lot of trouble for that. So the point of all of this is, basically, you need several sources of income in your retirement. You have these different sources of income. And then within those, you need to understand the tax treatment of all of them. And sorry about that. Specifically, you want to know that definitely the tax treatment of the retirement accounts, right? So just to give you an example of why, to bring it all together and give you an example of why all of this is so important, we're going to do 2 scenarios. So over here, we have somebody who without tax diversification. And this is someone who has tax diversification. Okay, so this guy here, all he has is a 401k. Okay, and this guy over here, he's got a 401k. Oh, I did that backwards, but 401k, and he's got cash value life insurance or a Roth. Okay. Now this guy, so say they're both taking out $100,000 out of their retirement accounts every year. So this guy takes out $100,000 out of his 401k. Now, this was pre-tax money, right? He's never paid taxes on this money. So every cent that comes out, he's going to pay taxes on, right? Well, if you're making $100,000, I'm going to make up tax brackets here, but let's say you're probably paying something like 22% in tax. Okay. Well, 22% of $100,000 is $22,000, right? So at the end of the day, you are left with $78,000, right? After you pay your taxes for that year. Okay. And let's just say that this is your only income, right? You're not taking Social Security. You don't have any other investments. So person number 2, who's done some tax diversification, right? He is going to take $50K out of his 401k. And he's going to take $50K out of his Roth account. Rachel, can you take him outside, please? Sorry about that, guys. Out of your Roth account. And so this $50K is going to be taxed at probably at 12% or so, right? Because you're in a lower tax bracket. So this $50K is you're only going to pay $6,000 in taxes, right? On this side, this money is tax-free. You're paying 0% taxes on this money. And so your tax bill is $0, right? Well, the delta between, so in this case, you end up with $94,000 after taxes. So you can see 78,000 versus 94,000, you can see is a difference of $26,000. No, $16,000, excuse me. So obviously you can see the advantages of tax diversification. And that is the gist of the presentation. So if anybody has any questions on anything, we can go to those. Hello.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and type those in.
Type them into the chat, which I will pull up.
Yeah.
How does this work? Someone raise a hand. Hang on. All right. Janae, okay, tax evasion if you took away advantage of the backdoor Roth option. Okay, That's a very good question. Everyone can still hear me? Everyone still here? Okay, I'm assuming everyone's still hearing. Okay, backdoor Roth is a completely legitimate tax option. What she's talking about is typically if you make more than about, I think right now it's $137,000 a year, the IRS won't let you put money into a Roth account. You just make too much money, they won't let you. There's certain ways to put post-tax money into your IRA and then do what's called a Roth conversion to move it into a Roth account. And there's a way to, even if you make more than that $137,000, there's a way to get around that. And it is completely legitimate. It was kind of a gray area until I think 2014 or maybe 2017, the IRS came out with some guidance that specifically said that the backdoor Roth is a legitimate way to get into a Roth account. So yes, that is not tax evasion. Am I an advocate of buying an annuity from a percentage of an IRA for a 48-year-old? That's a very good question. I would say, okay, things like 401k plans and IRAs, they're designed as accumulation instruments, okay? They're designed for putting money into and having it grow. They are not designed as distribution instruments, okay? They're actually sort of unsuited for distribution instruments. Most people, what they do, they retire with the 401k and then they just sell, you know, their 401ks in stocks and bonds. They'll just sell, you know, 4% of it a year. That's kind of the rule of thumb. 4% hopefully will you won't run out of money if you take 4% out each year, but that's certainly not guaranteed. So typically people just keep their 401k, sell 4% a year, and take the money to live on that year. But that's really, for a lot of the reasons, especially like the market volatility, the tax situation, that can be a very bad way to take to distribute the money to yourself. So a very wise option might be, and again, this is not financial advice, you know, when you're about to retire or as you retire, you might take part of that 401k, convert it, buy an annuity with it, convert it into an annuity. And as we said before, an annuity is a lifetime stream of income. So what a lot of people will do, they will figure out their bare necessities, you know, the bills they have to pay, you know, rent or mortgage, what they need to live on. And they will buy an annuity that pays them that much. So that is guaranteed money. They can't outlive it. It will never go away. And then what's left over, they might keep, you know, in a 401k in the stock market, hopefully to continue growing during their retirement. So it's something you want to talk to, you know, a financial specialist about, for sure. But annuities are a very, very good retirement planning tool just to make income that you absolutely know you can't outlive. And like I said before, so a lot of people don't like the word annuity. It's got kind of a lot of people have a bad reaction to the word annuity. I'm not sure why, but everyone loves Social Security, and Social Security is an annuity. So you all already have an annuity, a government annuity. It can certainly help though to create private annuities to augment your lifetime income. What is the best resource to understand when you can take money out of a tax-advantaged retirement account? Oh, well, you can go to irs.gov and read the publications, but they are a bit difficult to read, to say the least. I'll give you the gist real quick. The rules the IRS makes, basically, for a 401k and an IRA, 59.5 is the magic number. If you put money into an IRA or a 401k, it grows tax-free, right? But you can't touch the money until you're 59.5. If you take any money out, you're gonna have to pay income tax on every cent that you take out, and you're gonna have to pay a 10% penalty if you're under 59.5. Okay, and this is to de-incentivize people from taking money out of their retirement early. Now, there are some exceptions. First time home buying, you can take some out without the penalty. Certain medical expenses, you can take money out of your retirement without a penalty. But generally, the idea is the IRS says, look, we're going to give you this tax break. We're not going to send you a 1099 every year, but you got to make a deal with the devil here. You can't touch that money till you're 59 and a half. That's the rule. The other rule with 401ks and IRAs is when you're 72 years old, you're going to have to start taking what's called required minimum distributions, RMDs. And that means when you turn 72, the IRS, they have this formula based on your life expectancy and how much money is in your accounts, where they're going to force you to distribute some of that money out each year and pay your income tax on it. Because look, you deducted this money before it went in, right? You never paid any taxes on the growth as it grew. The IRS, one of these days you got to pay the piper. You're going to have to pay taxes. And the IRS doesn't want you, live until 100, racking up, tax-free growth the whole time, and then, leaving the whole thing to your kids. They want their taxes eventually. So at age 72, they're going to force you to start taking a certain amount out. And this can kind of screw up people's finances. If you don't need your 401k money, you already have plenty of income, plenty of assets for your retirement. You might not want those distributions because all they're going to do is jack your tax bill up. And if you're already in a high tax bracket and they force you to take money out of your 401k, you might be paying 40% income tax or 35% income tax on those distributions. So this is something to be very aware of. Roths have similar rules. They're a little bit different. There are lots of places online. Investopedia. I would just look online on a lot of the finance sites, can really give you all the details. They get a little bit complicated. Roths don't have RMDs because you pay taxes at the beginning, right? It's post-tax money. So there aren't any RMDs, but there are certain other rules. But I'll let you, you can contact me personally if you'd like. I can go into more detail for sure about any of those, or you can certainly find it on, I like Investopedia if you just want like a free online site. Let's see what else we got in the chat here. Where'd my chat go? Stand by. Oh, there it is. Okay, June says, I only contribute to a 403B and no to Social Security. Am I still eligible for Social Security? Can people have both a traditional IRA and Roth IRA accounts or multiple traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs? Okay, so there are some, I'm going to guess that you're probably a Louisiana teacher since you have a 403B. And there are a lot of sort of specific rules to 403Bs. There are some rules that vary state by state. If you're not doing any contribution to Social Security, then no, you are not putting money into your Social Security account. If you never put a cent into Social Security, like you never had a wage job, you never paid payroll taxes, you've never put anything in Social Security, you're not going to have Social Security, when you retire, because the benefits actually are based on how much money you've put into the system. I don't know the details offhand, but I do know that a lot of times, typically state employees or local school employees will have an option to put, they have a drop account in Louisiana. They have options to arrange their retirement so that they get more into their retirement account, but they don't put into Social Security. So that's definitely something you need to look into. Again, if you'd like to speak to me privately, we can look over your statements, look over your pay stub, figure out exactly what's going on. As far as multiple Roths and traditional IRAs and Roth accounts, you can have a Roth and an IRA. Yes, you can have multiple IRAs and multiple Roths, but the IRS rules encompass all of them. So for instance, you can only put the IRS only lets you put $6,000 a year into a Roth or into a traditional IRA. Now that's shared between the Roth and the IRA. You can't put 6,000 into a Roth and 6,000 into an IRA. You can put 2,000 in one and 4,000 in the other, or 3,000 in one and 3,000 in another, or 6,000 in one and zero in another, whatever. But it can't, the total can't be more than 6,000. That goes up every few years for inflation. They'll adjust it, but right now it's 6,000 a year. So that's a $6,000 limit. You can have multiple IRA accounts. You could have an IRA at 3 different banks, 3 different IRA accounts, but you still can only put a total of $6,000 spread them out around all of them. It's a global limit. It's not per IRA or per Roth account. It's an IRS rule, and they say $6,000 total into all your Roths and all your IRAs. That does not include 401ks. 401ks don't have anything to do with the $6,000 limit. There are certain rules. If you contribute to a 401k, you may not be able to contribute to a traditional IRA, but you can still contribute to a regular Roth. There are a lot of specific rules. They're not too complicated, but they can get a little messy. So again, you probably want to consult a professional, take your statements, see exactly what's what. Look at your tax situation. Again, on the tax situation, earlier I was talking about, post-tax versus pre-tax money. So the question is, okay, so I've got an IRA and a Roth. Do I want to pay my taxes now, put it in the Roth and never pay taxes again? Or do I want to take a tax deduction now, pay less taxes this year, but then when I retire, they call it creating a tax bomb for yourself. Big old 401k can be a tax bomb. And the answer is, it depends. It depends on what happens in the future. Right now, believe it or not, we're actually in a fairly low tax environment. The Tax Cut and Jobs Act from 2018 pretty much lowered a lot of people's taxes, changed up the tax brackets. The Tax Cut and Jobs Act is going to sunset in 2025. And if Congress doesn't do anything, and the tax rates will go back up, the tax brackets will go back to where they were before. Of course, Congress could do whatever they want. They could change it. They could decide not to do anything. Who knows what they're going to do? I will say especially with this recent COVID pandemic, all the money we've printed, all the stimulus checks, all the unemployment, there's a good chance we'll be looking at higher taxes in the future. The government's going to have to come up with that money somehow, either through taxes or inflation. So it may be, it may work out. You may decide, what, I'm going to pay my taxes now when taxes are kind of low, put them in a Roth, put them in my life insurance, and then I don't have to worry about what Congress does. They can raise taxes to 90%. It won't matter, for my Roth retirement funds. On the other hand, you might say, look, I need to take a tax. I make too much money right now. I need a deduction today. When I retire, I won't be making as much in retirement, so I might be in a lower tax bracket then. I want to take the deduction now. I'll pay my taxes later on, maybe when I'm making less money. So there's no right or wrong answer. Whether you want to do tax now, or whether you want to do pre-tax or post-tax money, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But like I would say, diversify. Have some tax-free, have some that you're going to pay taxes on, and just so you're ready for whatever happens in the future, whatever crazy things Congress comes up with. Any other questions? Do you want to type in the chat? I'll take this opportunity to remind everyone that everything I've been talking about today is for educational purposes only. None of it should be taken as tax advice or legal advice or financial advice or investment advice. Just so everyone's crystal clear on that. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions, so I think I will wrap things up. Like I said before, if anyone would like to talk to me about your specific situation, whether you're just starting working and you just opened up your first IRA, or you don't have any retirement, you want to get started, or if you're about to retire and you want to see where you're at, you know, what, or if you are retired, you've already retired, and you want to take stock and make sure that you're not going to outlive your money and make sure everything's in the right place, you know, please give me a call. I'm not a lawyer. I don't charge by the hour. I don't charge anything to speak with me and to go over your plans. So yeah, shoot me an email or give me a call.
Great. Oh, I am back. Thank you so much, Antoine. Like that was really informative and amazing, and I'm way behind. So I will probably be talking to you soon. Anyway, I hope that everyone you know, enjoyed it as much as I did and got some great information. We'll be sending out a follow-up email with the sort of charts and things here, and you know, Antoine's, God, I can't speak today, I apologize, Antoine's contact information and all that, so you will receive that. And next week, be on the lookout, we will be doing another fun episode with Chef Mark. He's going to be talking about summer wines and wine pairings. So that'll be fun. But again, thank you so much, Antoine. We really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for spending your lunch hour with us. Hope to see you again soon. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.